The world of One Piece is a sprawling anime and manga series. It is a testament to the power of ambition and perseverance. As the time skip hit, everyone was patiently waiting for Zoro's first serious 1v1 fight, and we got that with King. People were largely disappointed in the fight when it happened in the manga, but it's received a newfound appreciation thanks to the amazing episode Toei put out on May 21st. In this video, I'll be explaining what I believe to be the main narrative significance of this fight, and how I think it was a good fight to bring Zoro's ambitions into the end game. King is Albert's new name, and it's also a title that implies superiority and royalty. It is an acknowledgement that Albert has a body and is of a race that is superior to others. Kaido, being someone who is historically literate, knew what Albert was and named him accordingly. This completely changes his worldview. Albert initially was abused and used like a slave, but when Kaido freed him and he realized that he was actually a king, it made him think that everyone was just below him and was jealous of his power. If we contrast this with Zoro, Zoro is just a regular human. Humans are so frail that something like falling down the stairs can kill them. And that's what happens to Zoro's rival Kuina. People like to joke about this flashback and almost call it a gag, but I think that this flashback has a profound message about fate. Fate can come and snatch you at any moment. It took Kuina away before she had the chance to prove herself. Kuina's death was a complete accident and was completely random. There wasn't some enemy that defeated her or some insufficiency in skill that led to her downfall. Just a random, accidental death. And this is the force Zoro is fighting against. Zoro refuses to be a victim of fate. If he is not fated to do something, he will simply overcome fate and do it anyways. Take Zoro testing his fate at Logtown. All of the other users of Sandai Katetsu had tragic fates, but Zoro challenges fate and wins. This could be read as a metaphor of how Zoro will not let other experiences determine his future, how he will live on his own terms and achieve his own goals no matter the circumstance. It's a metaphor for how he will overcome fate itself. He doesn't care how much suffering that puts him through if it means he will achieve his goal. Even if he has to become the very embodiment of suffering itself. Even if he has to become the king of hell. This mentality makes Zoro the hardest worker in all of One Piece, and I would argue that his will is the second strongest in the series next to Luffy. Contrast this with King, who believes that he is inherently superior to everyone due to his race. Or in other words, due to the blessings of fate. Some people are born better, and that's just the way things are, according to him. He stands among the top of them, and thus regular people couldn't hope to compare to him. Zoro represents the relentless work and perseverance that are concomitant to being a human. King represents the hubris common among those at the top. Now at this juncture, I'm sure people will argue that Zoro is a descendant from Ryuma, so while what I'm saying may sound nice, it isn't actually true. But I think that the problem with this critique is that Zoro is so many generations removed from Ryuma at this point that I don't think it really matters. Kuina had just as much Ryuma as Zoro did, but that didn't change anything. Saying that Zoro is carried by Ryuma's genes is like telling your Mongolian friend that he really didn't accomplish anything in his life because he has Genghis Khan's genes. That may be technically true, but he's so far removed from him at this point that it doesn't really matter. The Wano Country arc is about duty and sacrifice. The Scabbards have a duty to protect Odin, and Odin sacrifices himself to protect the Scabbards. Similarly, Luffy is the captain who sacrifices and protects his crew, while the crew has a duty to protect and sacrifice themselves for Luffy. Both the leaders and the servants serve each other in a beautiful cycle of sacrifice. The beginning of Albert's story is about how he was unfairly being tested by science only to be broken out by Kaido. Because of this, Albert believes that he owes his life to Kaido. He accepts the name Kaido gave for him, now calling himself King. If we contrast this with Zoro, you'll realize that Zoro was actually well established before meeting Luffy. He was a bounty hunter who had already made a name for himself, catching the attention of even Warlord Crocodile. Luffy joins Zoro and saves him, but it's not as though he devotes his life to Luffy to begin with.
俺は大変な船に乗っちゃったのかな。
奇遇だな。俺もさっき同じこと思ったよ。
People often forget this, but Zoro openly tells Luffy that he would kill him if their goals clashed. It wasn't until around, I believe the Arlong Park arc, where Zoro really dedicated his life to Luffy. I believe that it was in the Alabasta arc, where he saves Smoker at Luffy's nonsensical request, that Zoro fully realizes the kind of man that Luffy is and dedicates himself to serving him. I believe that this was the action that really cemented it, at least in my head.
なんで仲間で居続けるのか。付き合いが長くなるとよ、別の目的も生まれてきてんだ。
The chief difference between the two, however, is that while King is wholly subservient to Kaido, the relationship is somewhat one-sided. Kaido sees King as an ally, but not necessarily an equal. This is because King has no ambition apart from achieving his captain's dream. This is why, ironically, King has the name King, but doesn't have kingly ambitions. He doesn't have Conqueror's Haki. Zoro, on the other hand, has ambitions that stretch beyond his captain's. And Luffy understands that Zoro is similarly driven to achieve his goal. It is ironically because of this that Zoro's allegiance to his captain runs deeper than King's. It's grounded in a bond of friendship and equality, not mere subservience. Zoro's ambitions extend beyond blind obedience. He seeks personal growth, viewing his captain as a mentor and companion. To be clear, I am not saying that Zoro is equal to Luffy, I'm just explaining their relationship. This profound ambition fuels Zoro's indefatigable drive to become the greatest swordsman in the world. It propels him to overcome insurmountable challenges and reach unprecedented heights. Luffy and Zoro both give their own goals 100%, while giving each other's goals 100%. The result is that they both grow 200%. Their internal and external motivators work in symbiosis. Zoro stoically takes on all of Luffy's pain, and Luffy refuses to interfere when Zoro is fighting Mihawk, even stopping Johnny and Yosaku from interfering. We all know Luffy. Every bone inside of him was telling him to go and interfere. But he understands Zoro's dream, and he'll do anything he can to respect it, even if it's killing him inside. Zoro's personal drive is constantly reasserted in the Wano arc against King, and it makes sense because this is where he becomes a conqueror. Conqueror's Haki is bestowed upon individuals with unyielding ambition, unwavering determination, and an indomitable will. They have the disposition to win and dominate over others. Zoro's burning desire to surpass his own limits and become the greatest swordsman perfectly aligns with the criteria of possessing conquerors. He just needed the proper circumstance and the proper opponent in order to bring it out. This was the only fight against an opponent of comparable strength whom Zoro was reminded of his very reason for setting out on sea. Thank you for watching.